Okay, let's learn. Kumlan and Ablat Gemara. We are up to Masechta Tainas at Yud Beis Amud Aleph Chav Kislev. Second day of Yud Kislev Yom Tov. We are up to the Gemara over here. Amar Shmuel, about 15 lines on top. We're talking about different rules of a Tainas and talking about the concept of a Tainas Shas. Amar Shmuel, says Shmuel. Kol Tainas, any fast, like Kibul Olam Ba'oid. If you didn't accept it upon yourself previously, Lav Shmei Tainas. If you're fasting, say, no, I'll continue fasting, that's not a fast. It means you can change your mind. Forget about saying Tfilas Anenu. You can even change your mind with nothing. Be Yosef Mai, and if you did sit in the fast, you get any benefit? Amar Abba Shela, Domi, similar to the Mapucha, to bellows, the Mal Yazika that's full of wind. What is the value of it? Nothing. Same thing here. You're fasting, you didn't achieve anything. So Amos is important to have Kabbalah's Tainas. Talking about a Tainas Yachir or Tainas Tzibur, but not the ones that we have fixed on our calendar. So the question is, so when are you Mekabel? Rav Amar b'mincha. Rav says mincha time, which Shmuel says b'tfilas mincha. Shmuel says the davening of mincha, and the logic behind that, according to Shmuel, is we want you to Mekabel the Tainas as close as possible to when the Tainas begins. So tfilas mincha. And is machlekes Rishonim mincha dafka mincha tana the later mincha, or even mincha gedela the early one, like the early afternoon. Rashi says mincha but not shachris, so it sounds like any time during mincha. Other Rishonim say dafka has to be the later mincha as late as possible. As machlekes Rishonim Rab, who says mincha time, does he mean literally that same day, or he means you can do it 2, 3, 4 days in advance as well, and take a Kabbalah out for whenever you want to begin fasting? All the basic says Kavod Shmuel Star makes more sense like Shmuel to receive what that you have to take it upon yourself and Megillah and Mincha time when you daven Mincha, because written Megillah's Tainis. In Megillah's Tainis is we had Gemara Hashanah that it said in the Gemara Hashanah said that the Megillah Tainis was cancelled, but basically it lists all the minor Yom Tovim that we had on the calendar, and those days you shouldn't be fasting, you shouldn't make any eulogies, and there at the very end it says as follows these words, the end of that sefer. Kol Inish, any person, the Yeser Mekadmadana that took upon themselves prior to all of this, Yeser, and they asked them themselves to eat, they took upon themselves a fast day. For example, they took upon themselves 10 days to fast. And some of those days, let's say every Monday, some Mondays turn out to be one of these Yom Tovim. The din is that person has to continue fasting. And to use the word Yeser. It says the Yesar, and Yesar means that it should become Asa, that he has to continue fasting, even though it falls out on these Yom Tov. Now, what do you mean Yesar? Yesar means he asked himself. So Yesar Atzma B'tzila. He asked himself during davening, and if he wouldn't have accepted it during davening, then they wouldn't have the koyach to push away these Yom Tovim recorded in the sefer called Megillah's Tainis. So we see that the main thing is Tfilas Mincha. You must know. Law, who said yes means a verb that you asked himself, maybe maybe became ose by itself. Tzela means either during davening, or tzela means through a neder. And anyway, it means it became ose by itself. You took upon yourself a long time before, not immediately before the fast, like Rav says, and it could be that as well. So there's no proof one way or another. All it's saying here is that if you have fast days already organized prior, and it falls out on one of these days, we'll soon see. It depends how it works. That it could be that it cancels these Yom Tovim. So think about Rabbi Yesar. One of them says that you should read Yesar, that you asked it on yourself. It became Asa. Mando Amar Yesa, the one says Yesa is we just said during davening. Mando Amar Ye Oser, what do you mean Ye Oser, Mahi, what does it mean? The time you learn because time Kolinish the Yaisole, any person brought upon himself Mekan Madonna prior to these days, Ye Oser, Kates, what do you mean? It says in the Brisa follows, Yochi, Kiblo Shane Chamishi. Let's say a person took upon himself to fast every Monday and Thursday, perhaps. So call Hashanah the entire year. And it happens to be coincided with different days of Yom Tov. Let's say his neder took place prior to the Yom Tov happening. Before the Yom Tov happened, he already took it upon himself. Then then his neder supersedes our Gzeda. Let's say we already printed the book, we already wrote Megillah's Tainis, we already enacted these rules, we already declared that these days are Tevim. Then afterwards, he took upon himself every Monday to fast, for example, and some of these Mondays coincide with some of these Yom Tevim. Then Tivatu Gzeiro Seinu Es Nidroi. Then we cancel his neder for him. We cancel it. Okay, you're fasting and you declared you took upon yourself to fast tomorrow. We learned before that only Tisha B'Av you fast 24 hours. Or we'll see later about certain fast of droughts. But otherwise, our fast days are only for the day. From what time of the day? Ad Mosai Eichel to when can you drink? Ad Chiyala Mudashach until daybreak. Divei Rebbe Avaloza B'Rav Shimon Ad Kreisa Gever until the Kroben Zeruz, which is much earlier. Interesting on Tanya, the Alter Rebbe says if you go to sleep and you see a das, you have to start 3 hours before the fast day. Maybe that falls under Kreis HaGeber. Amar Abaye said, Abaye, Lo Yishanu. When do we say we have two versions? Abaye said, Lo Yishanu, Elosh Legama Sudoshe. When do we say that he continued eating to whatever he didn't finish his meal? Once he completed his meal, that's it. Once you complete a meal, as if you walked away, you took a pint of the fast, whatever that is. You're not allowed to eat anymore. You're not eating anymore. Rabbi asks a question. It says in the Braisa, Gomar, if he completed the Amad and he stood up. Nevertheless, Hareza Oichel says he can continue eating. Clearly, you finished eating, you went away, you can still eat until the morning. The Gemara says, no, you never took the food off the table. You left the food on the table, even though you walked away, and that means you had a mind that you'll come eat later. That's why you're allowed to continue eating. Otherwise, if you're Masir Das and you thought, even though the fast starts tomorrow morning, but if you decide, I said, this is my last meal, then that's it. This is all talking about didn't go to sleep. Abul Yoshan, if you went to sleep, sleeping already means that you don't tend to, as we'll see, unless you have a mind, you know that you're going to wake up in order to eat something. Says clearly, even though you went to sleep, you can eat. And they're talking about he's never really slept, you dozed off. But if you went to sleep with him, unless he clearly had a mind to wake up early before the Amud Shachar and eat something. What's the definition of misnamnim? Dozing. Amar Rashi says nim v'loinir. He's sleeping but not sleeping. Tir v'loitir. He's up but he's not up. What do you mean? If you call him by his name, but only he'll answer you. It's like, yeah. So if you ask him anything that requires him to think for a minute, it's impossible. But on the other hand, if you can remember him, you're going to remind him, oh, did you hear this or that? He'll remember. Well, he's half asleep. So if he's half asleep, he can continue eating when he gets up again. But if he went totally asleep, he cannot eat unless he clearly had a mind. If an individual accepted upon himself a tainis, and we're not sure what kind of tainis he took upon himself. Did he take upon himself tainis yochid or tainis tzibur? Is also been the ilas asandi. He's not allowed to do any of the inuyim. He's not allowed to wear shoes. Chayshin and shema tainis tzibur kibul. Or maybe he took upon himself a tainis tzibur. Heichi Muravid, what you do? Amar Rabbi Shela Lema. This is what you say. This is what you should explicitly say, that tomorrow I take upon myself a tainis yochid. We said before you have to take it upon yourself a tainis during mincha. The machlek is where exactly in mincha do you do it? Do it by Shema Kalenu. We actually say you don't do it you do it at the very end of Shemona by the kind of tzur. And some say it's enough to think it. Others say you cannot just think it, you have to actually say it. The Ritva Shitta and a few others hold that all Kabbalahs, if you think it, it's worthless. Even Kabbalah Shabbos, if you think that you're going to Kabbalah Shabbos, it's not Shabbos. You actually have to say Kiddush, or you have to daven Ma'ariv, you have to light count, you have to do something to make it happen. Kabbalah alone is not enough. So when it comes to a Kabbalah of a time, it's not enough to think I'm going to fast tomorrow by Shemona. You actually have to say the words. According to some of the Shainim, to say the words that I'm going to be fasting tomorrow. There's also a big machlek if a neder of a tainus is saying thinking upon himself a tainus, is that a neder or not? Is that nidrei yisudin or is that nidrei hegdish? In other words, okay, we'll go about that in a minute. So right now the Gemara is saying if you're not sure what it is, you have to be machmir all the inuyim. We'll soon see that doesn't apply today because even today we don't even tainus tzibur don't have to. But what do you call it? And the best thing is to clearly say, I'm taking upon myself a tainus yachid tomorrow. Under the Malashation, we saw these rabbis in the time were wearing shoes, and they came to the place of the tiny. In other words, it was a fast day, and yet they were wearing shoes. Eat, but he was upset. They're wearing shoes, they're probably eating as well. They used to walk in the shul wearing shoes without any soles. In order to, they used to wear shoes, but they put the right shoe on the left and the right, so it wasn't comfortable, and therefore that's the same thing as inuyim for shoes. Rabbanan. Yeah. What Rashi Nafki Kirchai, they went no way. They followed what Shmuel said. Ain tinus tzibur bubble. There's no tinus tzibur bubble. Elotisha bubble bad. Big machzik Hashem that means. Rashi said because in bubble it doesn't really rain. Sounds from Rashi, but all other regions in the world have problems. They have rain problems. They do fast. It's only bubble, and even bubble. Other sodas they will fast. But other Rishonim learned that there's no tinus at all outside of Eretz Yisrael, and the reason for that is in Eretz Yisrael you have a nasi, everybody's bound by him. The idea of a tzibur exists in Eretz Yisrael. Outside of Eretz Yisrael, you don't have the idea of a tzibur. There's no one person that can control everybody, and therefore, because you don't have a tzibur, they don't have the power or the capacity to declare a tinus tzibur. So when we make tanesim these days for sometimes issues, everyone has to declare their own time. It has to have in mind tinus by mincha, as it usually says on the posts and the signs. Make sure that you makabel tinus by mincha. Let's go further. And the difference, okay, and the Ritva uses the idea that it's not really a neder of Yisudin, it's only a neder of Hegdish. A neder of Hegdish, you can always. It's not really a neder, and he says that you can always push it off and change it off and so on and so forth. Not like neder is studying that it's chal straight away and you cannot cancel, can't do anything. Because look at the Gemara says right here. A person can borrow his kindness to pay off. You were going to fast today, didn't for whatever reason you can't, so you can change it till tomorrow. And the Ritva uses as an eye, it's not neder is student. Because neder is student, if you said you're going to fast Tuesday, that's it, you can't do anything about it. Can be to the Bashul neder kibel kabel neder the lesaki the mishal tsunafshi kibel is a neder the lesaki the mishal the mishal is like a neder that he has to take it upon and do straight away. But so uri nafshi kibel he only took a fast because he wanted to make himself the discomfort, so like to cause himself to do tshuva and so on. So it depends. If he can, he can. If he can't, he can't. Not all the Rishonim are even good as these words. They hold generally you're not bound by it. There's another version of it. Name a person can borrow his kindness to pay back. Surely you can. You can always pay it back later. You can always make it up another day, so you don't have to buy by it. And again, some Rishonim say it's talking about if you didn't start fasting at all. But once you started fasting, even if it's difficult, you have to continue the fast. Because once you start the neder, you have to comply with it. Once came to Masi of the eglet too, so they made him a beautiful calf, either a calf a third of way in its life, like veal, or the third born calf, because it's supposed to be the juiciest. They said to him, eat something. I'm sitting in fasting. Why don't you just borrow and pay it back? So from this Gemara, it sounds like that even though you started fasting, you can still change it to another day. Not like I just told you, some of the Rishonim say, once you started for fun. So he said, no, so don't you hold that you're allowed to pay back. So change it, right now eat with us, and tomorrow you'll fast. This is different. This is a fast for a nightmare, for a bad dream. The best thing, if you have a cholom that sounds like a premonition of something terrible is going to happen to you, then it's a good thing to fast. It's like fire to flax; it burns quickly. It will, whatever the warning of the dream is, it'll dissipate. Because this is the way of doing tshuva. Has to be dafka on the very immediate. Even for the Shabbos. You read Machal Shabbos, the Shabbos week, Oinik Shabbos, my takante leisef tanisa fast before you fast. You have to do tshuva again. So this was told yesterday. The Tosha says you can do an aveda, but the mitzvah is much greater, so therefore it overrides the aveda. You're still doing an aveda. You have to fast for the fact that you fast on Shabbos. So no, you need to do tshuva for that. I know that we still want you to fast on Shabbos. Big machekes are shining what kind of dreams we're talking about, whether it applies today, and some of the dreams that it says you would never imagine that's considered a nightmare. One of them is ni'ila. by if you dreamt that you're standing by Ne'ilah and Yom Kippur, that's a terrible dream. You're standing, you have a dream that you're getting married, it's a terrible dream. Your jaws fall out, that makes sense. Or a house burns down, that makes sense. But these other things, hard to understand. Machlek is whether it applies today or we don't know how to interpret dreams and all these kind of things. And why Taki allowed to? So now Rebbe explains a bit further, and he says because the whole idea of Shabbos, no mitzvah to Shabbos, mitzvah to have pleasure on Shabbos. And when do we allow you to fast on Shabbos? That if you cannot enjoy the food, you're so shaken by what you saw last night that you cannot sit there and enjoy the food. In fact, it would be more enjoyable if you feel that you did something to remove whatever foreboding messages there were in that dream. Then you're allowed to fast. And even though you shouldn't fast, if you fast on Sunday to make up for that Shabbos. If Sunday is Chodesh, you fast on Monday. Next Mishnah.
Can I ask, does that mean so the Tainus of a Cholam, you don't need to announce at Mincha time?
No, this is you've dreamt it Friday night. If you dreamt it Thursday night, emotional, you're not allowed to push off the Shabbos. This is different. This is more like a tshuva. This is a fast to do tshuva for immediate thing. And generally speaking, it says today you shouldn't be doing that. And there's only 3 or 4 dreams that Shulchan Aruch highlights is considered. Like I just told you, some of them. Or one opinion is any time of other Rishonim say on the contrary, all of these things are good signs. Why should you fast at all? If you're fasting if you had a dream that you're standing, that you're Yom Kippur, that means that you're doing tshuva. That they've accepted your tshuva. Or if you're getting married besides the simcha of getting married, doing a mitzvah, it's like Yom Kippur. Again, the same idea. That a person gets married, they're meichel all your avedas. So that's all part of the problem why we don't really fast for these kind of things. Says the Mishnah. These fast days went by, and you still didn't get in, and still didn't start raining. The first set of 3 went by, and you start raining. Is Goiz and Gimel Bezdin, Goiz and Gimel Tenached. That goes to lot number 2. Another 3 fast days. Al Hatziba, but this time not just the Yechidim, not just Tamil Chachamim, but everyone. You can eat this now because like a Tisha B'Av fast, 24 hours. So you can eat during the day. But on the day itself, you cannot work, or the chitza washing, or the sikha smearing, or the sasana wearing shoes, tasha mitra. No, it's exactly like Tisha B'Av. You close up shop, you close all the bathhouses. It says here, eat by day. Big machlek is Rishonim. If just like Yom Kippur, you have Tosfos Yom Kippur, we don't stop. Just when it gets dark, we stop before. So too by Tisha B'Av and all these other ones, do we have the idea of Tosfos? The Rambam says there's no Tosfos by Tisha B'Av, and others say there's no Tosfos by Tisha B'Av, and any fast that you lose no Tosfos. And others say that no, the Yom Kippur is no different than any day. It has to be Me'od Yom, still well into the day, and you have to add to the fast day on both ends. That's what others want to say. And others know only applies to Shabbos, and that's why by Shabbos it is very different than if you ever look at the calendar, you see that Shabbos ends Tzedek Chavim is later than during the week. Now, how does that work? If it's Tzedek Chavim in the week is 6:10, then why on Shabbos is 6:25? So on Shabbos we are machmir. During the week we say you look at the middle-sized stars, the Kochavim Beinanim, and that's when it's night. But on Shabbos we're more machmir. We say you need Kochavim Tanim. You need the small stars, just a little bit later, just to make sure, 100% sure. And on the other hand, there's a machlekes Rishonim on Tisha B'Av, whether Bein Hashmashos you have to fast, based on the Gemara talking. Whether you have to fast in Bein Hashmashos at all, or we are since only the Rabbanan and Bein Hashmashos is a suffix, we could be makel. And especially as a suffix, maybe the halacha like Rav Yossi that the whole Bein Hashmashos is only one instant. So maybe you can eat even into Bein Hashmashos of Tisha B'Av and all these other fast days. Forget about adding before Shkia. Even after Shkia, maybe you can eat all the way till Bein Hashmashos or even till Tzedek Chavim. So the Mishnah continues. What happened over Elon and the second set of 3? Everyone fasted. It didn't work. Now we have a series of 7 fasts that everybody has to fast. Yud Gimel Tainiyas. Also a total of 13, 3, 3, and 7. You say this other is what do we do in this set 7 that we didn't do in the 3? And this one here we blow shofar, we shut all the stores down completely. But B'Sheni on Mondays, Matinim Chashechi open the stores a little bit towards the evening. You could have to buy food. But if a Chamishi on Thursday Mutarin, the stores can remain open all day. They're fasting Bahab Monday, Thursday, Monday. If they cover the Shabbos, you have to allow the stores to be open. What happens now? All these fast days went by, 13 fast days went by, and nothing happened. Matin, you reduce the business you do. Binyan, you reduce the business you do. Binyan, in building, over the tea and planting, the Ada, since you're getting married. These are all the laws of the 9 days that you find in Shulchan Aruch. Come from right here. And just the social life. You should treat yourself. The Eibush is completely marginalize us and ostracize us, and we need to do tshuva. The Yechidim they continue fasting all the way till this ends. Once Nisan went by and there's no rain, if you're going to continue fasting and you want rain, it's a bad sign then. It says that he said, when the Yidden asked Shmuel Hanavi for a king, and he didn't like the way, he didn't approve the way they asked for it. He said, well, now is the time of harvest, you call out to Hashem and he'll make it rain. It'll be a good thing. And therefore asking for a king, the way you did, you want to be like the Goyim, is a bad thing. Gemara. I understand why you want to ban all of these other things on the fast days, because, and the second set of fast days and third, because they give pleasure. We don't want you to have pleasure. The ask most people going to work is painted, rather stay at home. So why is that forbidden on these fast days? Because it says in the pasuk, it says, you should sanctify the fast day, and call it a gathering. Gather all those Canim who sit in the land. And so therefore, Kat said, since you were Atzara, so it should be like Atzeres. It should be like Yom Teshvuos, so Shmei Atzeres. Ma Atzeres, also Basis Malacha, just like Atzeres. You're not allowed to work. Avtainis, also Basis Malacha. Also, you're not allowed to work. Yim Atzeres Mu'urta Shvuos, you're not allowed to work 24 hours. So Avtainis not Mu'urta, so I mean you're not allowed to work 24 hours. Says Isfus Canim, gather together the elders. Dumidasivas Canim. It has to be similar to the time when you used to gather, but you don't gather elderly people at night. They also remain at home. There's a Canim, Masivas Canim only by day. After not the day. So therefore, on the fast day, the work hours are only during the day. Veima Metira maybe means only after lunch. Noontime, they used to gather together in the morning on a fast day. They used to gather all the elders together, and they used to come in the shul, and they used to sit there and go through all the deeds of the town to see why did this happen? What did we do to deserve this? What can we do? Tshuva, how can we improve? And when did they do that? In the morning. So therefore, it starts from the morning. What exactly they do? I'm going to buy him probably the first half of the day. They would look in and examine everything that was going on in town. They would call in people to ask them questions like what's happening in town. Maybe they're doing something wrong. Maybe, in Rashi's example, maybe it's a lot of thievery and robberies and plunder going on, and people are dishonest. And then you have to go call the people and the victims in and appease them and ask them for mechila. What to do the rest of the other half of the day? The next quarter of the day is a Korinyan B'Sifra of Avtarta. They used to read Sefer Teidos and do Avtarta. And the Kamer, the last quarter of the day, Be'inun Rachmi. Ask the Rachmi from the Eibush. Shenem says by Yakumu Alamadam. They stood where they were, and by Yakoru B'Sefer Teidos Hashem Lekayim, the VSAM. The quarter of the day they sat there, they read the Sefer Teidos. Or the V is another quarter, Misvadim Umishtachim Hashem came. They would take reading and they bow down to the Eibishter. And Rashi says, what did they read? They read the Vayichal and they read Dishra Hashem. Why would that take a quarter of a day? I don't know. But they set aside a whole quarter of the day for people to daven and to the mincha and to read Torah. How do you know that that's the procedure that the second half of the day is davening and video, the first half of the day is when they examine what's going on in town? Maybe it's the other way around. maybe in the morning they first do the Havayachal and the Haftarah as they write it, and they daven and they ask David Rachamim. In the second half, they sit and they go through the town's matters. With learning side, you can't think so. See, but it says a pasuk, they should gather around me. Anybody who fears the Abish's words, and from Amagur, those who came from exile, and then it says the pasuk, and I'll be there until the afternoon. So see when it says and then towards the afternoon, Kamti, I stood up, metanasi for my tinus, and the Efresh of Kapel Hashem. Then I'll daven to the Eibush. So it's clearly from here that first in the morning they all gather together and they sit there, and then only afterwards do they daven to the Eibush. Okay, we'll stop over here and continue tomorrow. Mitzvah Hashem.